Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 269, cover dated October 1990. So this particular issue focuses on Rogue and what happened to her after she went through the Siege Perilous at the end of Uncanny X-Men 247. So the cover here features Rogue versus the original Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers. It's drawn by Jim Lee with his usual collaborator Scott Williams inking. And down the bottom there's a bit of a spoiler here in terms of Magneto's helmet there and the caption, "Guess who wins?" So Magneto does indeed show up at some point in this comic. So if we open to the first page here, it's quite a dense little start to this issue. It opens in Australia, and we have a caption concerning Rogue's passing through the Siege Perilous, pictured here. This was a magical object given to the X-Men by Roma, which would give them, as the caption says here, ultimate escape. To dive through it, one would be weighed in the cosmic balance, good against evil, and then cast out reborn to a fresh beginning, a second chance. So where Rogue is cast out is Australia. And here we have this magnificent double page spread, half page spread by Jim Lee of Rogue arriving naked out of the Siege Perilous back in her room in Australia. So here's the creative team: Chris Claremont, writer; Jim Lee, penciler; art, Thibert, guest inker; Task Force X, so a combination of letterers. Definitely this is Tom Orzechowski here, the regular letterer, but there's probably or obviously other letterers involved. Steve Buccellato, colorist. So Rogue arrives back in her room in the X-Men's hideout in the outback in Australia, and somebody's taking a shower in the ensuite. But before she investigates who that could be, she overhears a broadcast on the television concerning the death of Mystique. And this deeply upsets Rogue, because Mystique was Rogue's, in a sense, foster mother when she was growing up. And also in the background, this is Dr. Valerie Cooper, who's the government's liaison on mutant affairs. And this character in the background, she's talking about how she has made him her newly appointed deputy, FBI Inspector Jacob Rees. Now, Jacob Rees is the current human avatar of the Shadow King. And the Shadow King is going to turn up later in this issue. So as soon as Rogue hears the news broadcast, she gets her costume and is going to jump out the window looking for the other X-Men in the outback village. But when she jumps out the window, she finds she can't fly. She's lost some of her powers, it seems. And then she's met by this character, Pretty Boy, who's one of the Reavers, because the Reavers returned to the outback town in Australia, which was originally theirs before the X-Men kicked them out of it, and they returned to it in Uncanny X-Men 249 and took it over again. So they're currently living there. So this guy, Bonebreaker, contacts Donald Pierce, who's working on the creation of a new cyborg. This is Scylla Markham here, who Donald Pierce is going to turn into his new Skullbuster cyborg. Bonebreaker asks him what to do with Rogue, and he says that he's got a standing order to kill all mutants, and so to kill her. So he's about to do so when there's an intervention by an unexpected character, the original Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. And this is a strange occurrence because Carol Danvers is supposed to be dead in the continuity, but one of in the first appearance of Rogue, which was in Avengers Annual number 10, which was written by Chris Claremont, Carol Danvers turns up in that issue. She turns up stripped of her identity and memories. And this is because she has had an encounter with Rogue, which was of such duration that Rogue permanently absorbed her strength, invulnerability, and power of flight. So these have been Rogue's permanent powers taken from Carol Danvers in almost from the very beginning, from her first appearance. Now there's a little bit more to the story there because Claremont was writing Carol Danvers' own comic, but it was cancelled. And it was cancelled when the last issue, number 25, was halfway done, which was going to introduce Rogue as an antagonist. So Claremont had this idea regarding Rogue, and he ran with it in the Avengers Annual 10, and when he had the opportunity to write that particular annual was drawn by Michael Golden. I may make a video on that at some point. So Rogue is shocked to see Carol alive again and outside of her psyche. And so she makes her way to the hilltop where the mysterious Aboriginal figure Gateway is seated and forever silent. And Gateway's power is to open up teleportational transits to other places. So Rogue kisses him, takes his powers because that's her essential mutant power. Skin-to-skin contact allows her to take over the powers of other mutants, and Gateway is a mutant. So she uses his bull roar there to open up a teleportational portal. Carol catches up with her, and they both go through the portal, leaving Gateway in silence by himself atop the hill. So then the scene switches to an interlude in a galaxy far, far away, as the caption says, on the fringes of the Shi'ar Imperium. And here we have this particular character, Lila Cheney, who is a mutant also, and who has also the ability to teleport. And she's being chased here by these creatures who are under the command of this figure here, who later on will be revealed in upcoming X-Men comics as to who this character is. But I won't spoil that for the moment. And again, just interesting here, a little device. The color hold here suggesting these kind of electric plasma nets here, here, and here. And here around this character. So interesting little device there. Little additional bit by the colorist Buccellato. So it seems like Lila Cheney's being captured, but she uses a blaster which ricochets off one of these characters, blows a hole in the hull of the ship. She gets sucked out into space. They think she's dead, but she's a celestial scale teleporter, and she uses her power to teleport. And where she goes to will be revealed in upcoming issue of Uncanny X-Men. So then the scene switches to Earth again, the Savage Land, which is where Rogue has ended up, but without Carol Danvers. So she is in the Savage Land, and she's going to use her basic, her own strength and skill, since she's lost Carol's powers, to find her own way home and find the X-Men. So what happened to Carol Danvers then? So Carol ends up on Moore Isle, and in recent issues of Uncanny X-Men there have been little scenes set in Moore Isle where things have been going from bad to worse. And here we have Moira MacTaggert. This character here is revealed to be Amanda Sefton, an old girlfriend of Nightcrawlers and a demon sorceress. And Lorna Dane, Polaris, is their prisoner. So Carol proceeds to attempt to free Lorna, but Amanda intervenes, and then Legion arrives as well. So Legion is Professor X's mutant son with multiple personalities. He's also been involved in what's been going on Moor Isle, but it's revealed that he has been under the control of the Shadow King here all along. And so the Shadow King is the master manipulator in the background for everything that's been going on Moor Isle. Then the scene switches again to the Savage Land. Great Tyrannosaurus Rex here by Jim Lee. Great little montage of Rogue passing the weeks in the Savage Land, making her way home. And then the scene switches back to Moor Isle, and the Shadow King attacks Carol Danvers, drilling into her brain here in the form of this disgusting creature. He talks about how really his key powers are mental. He's a mental manipulator and a soul eater. Lorna in the background still has her own thoughts and is determined to get free and take revenge and take out the Shadow King. So then our scene switches back to the Savage Land, and Rogue has arrived at a village in the Savage Land, which the X-Men had recently helped the villagers in respect of an event that had happened in a previous X-Men annual. And the village has been destroyed, and so she's upset and distraught at what might have been the fate of the villagers. But someone is watching her, this character here, and who could it be? But on his screens, oh yeah, and just something else to note as well is, for the period that the X-Men were in Australia, after Roma cast a spell on them, which made them invisible to electronic surveillance, it appears that Rogue now, having come out of the Siege Perilous, is readable by electronic scanners and computers, as the computer identifies her as Rogue and an X-Man. So there is this unidentified object hurtling towards her, and it turns out to be Carol Danvers once again, but hideously deformed. In fact, as it turns out, rotting. So what is happening? Well, Carol explains that the two of them, while they've been corporeally separated, they share one life essence, and there isn't enough life essence for the both of them. So one of them is going to have to die, and Carol is determined that it not be her. And so they fight here, excellently choreographed by Jim Lee. And Carol begins to get the better of Rogue, but someone intervenes, takes Carol out, and here he is in silhouette. So the two women are down, and then the scene switches to an old building in the Savage Land, a citadel that belonged originally to Sauron, an old antagonist of the X-Men's. And within the citadel, Rogue is strapped to a machine, but she's freed from the machine, and she feels like her old self again, feels strong as she did before when she was possessed of Carol Danvers' powers. But who is it that has intervened and set her free? Well, it turns out to be, last page reveal, Magneto. And Magneto says that he's made a choice between Carol and Rogue as to who should live, and his choice was Rogue. So this is all set up for a storyline set in the Savage Land that will be developed in issues 2, 3, 274 and 275 of Uncanny X-Men, but in between there is the Extinction Agenda crossover. So this was the hallmark of Claremont's plotting at the time in 89, 90. Lots and lots of different plots and subplots up in the air at once. And so certain plots would get developed to a certain point, and then something else would get developed, and then he'd return. So it kept the readers hooked at the time. A great strategy for keeping your readers hooked. And just an excellent image here of Magneto homaging both Neil Adams and John Byrne in the style here. Okay, and that's the ad there, a classic house ad for the Extinction Agenda. And that we'll explore those issues in upcoming videos. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like the video. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. And I will talk to you in another video in another time. Stay tuned.